Hello, everybody. How's it going? My name is Nick, aka Capers, and I'm here this week to bring you some high quality weekly roundup content on behalf of Rad Nauseam for the 25th to the 31st of August, 2025. And this week, I'm here with Stony. How's it going, Stony?
I'm well, Nick. How are you?
Very well today. Very well today. Just finished up at gym and I'm feeling pretty awake. So let's jump into some deck lists. Let's start with Adelaide, as we always do. We have Tabletop Warfare. Monday 6:30, we had 16 players in the three. Looks like we had 3 rounds. The three O's were Rakdos and Boros. What do you reckon, Stoney?
Yeah, really cool to see the two color pairings showing up there. Be curious to know if this is an 8 point setup with the two colors. Red seems to be showing up a fair bit at the moment, but it really seems to be lending itself quite well to the aggressive strategies
Yeah.
that seem to be breakthrough in there at the moment.
Yep, they just keep printing the higher power little red, little red creatures that have been pushing these decks into the 3-0 bracket. So yeah, really good. Rakdos and Boros, two color decks are really good. I'd love to know if this was maybe a Legends list or a mid-range deck. But yeah, it looks like we'll keep it up. Two color decks seem really great right now. Speaking of two color decks, in Brisbane at the MTG main event on Wednesday, we had 28 players. This was last week. So this was I think it's the fortnightly event that they run. And we have Boros Legends showing up yet again with a nice clean 4-0 and a very sweet Omnath control. So a Sans Black control list.
Very sweet to see that. I've played a bit of Omnath-based control before. Very powerful value engine to have in your deck. Interesting though, with the amount of combo going around, to not have that discard in your arsenal. Bit of a concession to the metagame, but perhaps that's less of an issue up in Brisbane. As you can see, aggressive decks like Boros is something that green can maybe help stifle the impacts of a bit better than black can.
I agree. I think it's very interesting as we move across different states. We can kind of see the concessions that each LGS has to make when they build their decks, and it seems like Omnath control is doing really well here without black, which down in Melbourne might be a little bit more difficult. But yeah, really cool. And Elves 3-in-1. We love to hear that. That's amazing. So keep it up, Elves player. Really, really happy with that.
Last time I played against an Elves player, it was really just a Nadu player, so I'm always a bit cynical on the matter.
Nadu is an honorary elf. Speaking of very cool brews like elves, we have Jolt Games in Canberra. 33 players, so a lot of people playing at Jolt Games, and we actually have a couple of deck lists to look at here. Our 3-0s were 8-point Blue Moon, great deck. We have Zirda Artifacts, which we'll be looking at shortly. Hardened Scales as well, which we'll definitely be looking at. 8-point Green Eldrazi and Ice Till Jund. So a bunch of really cool deck lists. And if you look at the field there, you can see there's just a bunch of brews happening in Canberra. So it seems like a really good store to play at. And I'm going to have to get up there at some point and play because, yeah, just look at this. My beloved food mid-range is also part of the field. What do you reckon, Stoney?
Yeah, it's a huge selection there. There's definitely some favourites out there with the Eldrazi and Breach Bond being pretty well represented, but that's natural for really any store. Seeing all these different takes on Jund and about, and seeing different big mana decks like the Simic Challenge show something that you don't necessarily see all the time, and it's cool to see that there are pilots out there that are experimenting with these archetypes that maybe aren't getting the love on a week-to-week basis across the rest of the country.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of interesting artifacts, we have two deck lists to look at. So we have the 3-0s, we have Zirda Artifacts. This is a list from Salty Shark in the Discord. Seems to be a Zirda companion deck. Our points are in Tinker, Tolarian Academy, Balance, Mana Vault, and Enlightened Tutor, which you don't see it quite often. And it looks like we're running a few new cards like Tezzeret. You've taken a look at the list, Dan. What do you reckon?
I really like it. I've been looking around to see who else is playing in Line Shooter at the moment, and it seems to be really just this deck and Gene's land list. It seems to really be lending itself quite well to these lists that have quite a variety of different ways to kill you, but wants you to just be aggressively finding that one piece to make a second piece pop off and take over a game. Really cool list. Really focus on finding its different pieces. Balance as this great disruptive force so they can just turn the tide of the game in just that instant. I think is a really interesting decision made by our pilot here.
I agree. I think balancing a deck that relies so heavily on artifact mana with like your chromatic aura effects, really cool. You know, sometimes you can just completely hose any opponent that's playing creatures with a big balance, and then you get to keep all your artifacts in play and just win from there. The Zirda as well, just making infinite mana with Basalt Monolith. There's a bunch of combos in this deck, and the only two creatures obviously having to have activated abilities, but they both win the game on the spot most of the time. So really sweet list, and it's a 3-0, so a really fantastic score. Yeah, it's just one of the decks we have to look at. Let's jump into the Hardened Scales list. Now, if you're ever in the Discord, you can probably see Gubin's been playing Scales for a very long time and has been putting up some great results. We have a bunch of new cards in here. Most of it's built around this Hardened Scales card, but they do keep printing these effects in. Stoney, what are your thoughts?
It's an endless stream of +1 counters. It's very popular and marketable mechanic to Commander players. So I think Gubin is going to be very well fed for years to come with this little project of theirs. You've got Gene Pollinator as a new little Paradise Mantle type mana dork in the creature slots. Mark Bat Walker, interesting take on the Walking Ballista and also Hangback Walker, I suppose. Giving a bit of a refill to the deck in the creature slot there. Very, very sweet list all over.
I love any deck that plays Amarthus. This is such an interesting and cool card that just is sitting there, and Surge Ginger as well is really cool. Yeah, this deck is sweet. I see it every time there's a new +1/+1 counter card, which they keep printing. I see Gubin's always added in the Discord to discuss it, so it's really good to see this deck putting in results. It seems like Gubin's really dedicated to it. And then we also have a second Scales player in the field at Canberra. So this is a deck that more and more people are picking up, which is super interesting. Speaking of interesting, let's jump down to Melbourne, where we're from. This is Maze of Fitzroy. We had 10 players. This is my local as well. Our 3-1s were Storm, Grixis, and Blue-Red Prowess. We also had a 2-1, 1 loss and 1 draw. That was Junk. That was me playing Junk. So did quite proud of myself, only having played the deck for a few weeks. But yeah, Storm picking up that 3-1. Not a big surprise there. And also Grixis, just a consistent force down there. Black-based mid-range decks seem to be doing really quite well. Any thoughts on the Maze meta currently, Tony?
Good time. Good to see some of the creature type decks out there with goblins and merfolk showing up.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that someone else cracks the vampire deck before I do. But yeah, interesting to see Grixis showing up at the top brackets. Been a bit slow recently in Melbourne, but good on our pilot for putting up that result.
Yeah, I think Thoughtseize and Inquisition of Kozilek are two really good cards in this meta. Notably as well, Nadu showing up 2 wins, 2 losses. That was Mulch, who actually did convert to a pretty decent result in our monthly that we'll jump into shortly. And then, yeah, we have to bring it up. 8-point Merfolk. Bit of a heads up, we were able to record a game with Merfolk, so that'll be out soon. And the deck is really good. Shout out to Kixian for playing that. Let's jump into yet another Melbourne. This is the Plenty of Games Wednesday weekly. We had 18 players, and the 4-0 was Nadu. So Mulch's Nadu list converting a much better result than than Maze of Fitzroy. At the 3-1, we have Junk. That's me again, converting another great record. Storm, yet again. And then Golgari Land. So obviously Billy's been putting in some work. A couple 2-1s as well. Storm was on 2-1. I think that was Brennan. So a good result for him. And Amulet Titan. This is a deck we've been talking about recently. This is Olivier's deck, who he's been working on it very recently, and it's now putting up positive results.
Yeah, really sweet to see that archetype translating over to 7-point.
Yeah.
Recently been seeing some different variations in the lands archetype. Down in Melbourne, it's very green-black based with the traditional Lage focus, but seeing this injection of Amulet Titan into the meta should be interesting to see what sort of innovations we get to see within the archetype, and as a result, potentially the boarding options that people are taking to combat the archetype.
Yeah, love it. Now, we do have a deck to look at here. One of the 3-1s is Junk. So Junk is a deck that I've been working on recently. It's kind of the new deck that I've picked up, just trying to try some new decks instead of just playing food mid-range every week. And this is what I like to call Italian junk, mainly because it is the junk that you have to play when you're in Melbourne, because we need to play some other effects. So junk is a deck that was originally built by Raj in the Discord, and he's been quite a dedicated brewer to the list. And the only changes I've really made here is just concessions for the meta in Melbourne. So as you can see from the previous slide at Plenty of Games, there is quite a lot of Storm. There's quite a lot of combo decks as well, stuff like Walks and Storm are the two main decks that are going to be at the top table. So cards like Thoughtseize and Inquisition, they get much better. And then apart from that, this is most of Raj's deck list. And it's been doing really well. I really love it. And yeah, it's just a bunch of junky creatures held together by a Gaia's Cradle. What do you reckon, Stoney?
You gotta love pile of creatures just bashing face, making life miserable for your opponent. It's a great way to live. Good to have those little tools that combating things on that different axis from your traditional deck. You think of your control lists being very spell based, countering all of your opponent's spells, but this is a control list in the sense that it is controlling your life total, is controlling your options within the game, and is doing it all in a way that a Veil of Summer isn't going to save you. You have to deal with the colorless strip mines taking out your resources. You need to worry about the 7/7 Keen-Eye Curator bashing your face. And on top of all that, you've got this combo element within the Amorphous Fanatic and Traxxas. It's a great list and very interesting to see how you've pieced it all together.
Yeah, notably as well, we're on Cloud instead of Stoneforge Mystic. So just really relying on the card advantage from clamping up Cloud instead of the Stoneforge package. And it's been really good. You know, the double white pip is a real cost, but you know, being able to just draw 4 cards against your control opponent or against your fair opponent generally gets you in front. And then you're left with this, you know, with your Skull Clamp in play and a Cloud that you can later reanimate and then draw 4 more cards with. So yeah, really sweet deck. Thank you again to Raj for putting it together, and it's putting up a great result in Melbourne. So we'll move forward to more results in Melbourne. This is the Melbourne monthly event. So we had 37 players. The top 8 was Shops, Storm, that's right, 2 Storm deck lists in here, Esper Midrange, Dimir Moons, Atraxa Walks, Golgari Lands, and Nadu. We did have 3 Rad Nauseam players in the top 8, so shout out to the Rad Nauseam guys. 3 of us made it in there. And yeah, Stoney, what do you reckon about this top 8? Very, very mixed.
Yeah, huge top 8. Very combo focused, I must say. Really, the only quote unquote fair deck is the Esper Midrange. Shout out Michael putting up the good fight. And otherwise, your next closest contender would have to be Shops, which a lot of people probably wouldn't associate with being a fair deck in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. Still a great turnout and a really good meta in Melbourne, despite all of the Storm that we can clearly see. There is a couple of interesting decks here, and so Storm was able to convert. Having 2 decks in the top 8 means it's very likely, and they were able to get in front of Lands and Atraxa Walks, and then I believe Brennan was able to take down the event, was able to beat Richard in the semis, and then just get over Mulch in the finals to finally win. So congratulations to Brennan. A really great event, and yet again, Storm taking down another Melbourne event. It's been tearing up weeklies, and finally it's taken out a monthly. So yeah, good job, Brennan. Continuing in Melbourne, we have Games Portal. A 4-0 is Jund. 3 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw. We had Death and Taxes playing the fair game. Love to see a little D&T deck. And then the 3 wins and 1 loss, we had Jeskai Control, Selesnya Lands, and Gruul Lands. We also had Jund Lands in the 2 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. So a lot of Lands players at Games Portal. Sounds like a good time, Stoney.
Yeah, it's a really interesting meta out there. Lot of different takes. Haven't seen much of the Gruul variation on lands before. Generally, you see the black backing up the archetype, but very sweet lists on whole. Got to see some wizards going about there.
Yeah.
Boris Lutri, something that I imagine would be interacting with your life total a lot more than the old Grixis Lutri deck did, but very, very sweet lists on whole.
Yeah, I can imagine Lutri coming down and just copying a Price of Progress would be pretty sweet and pretty fun play pattern. So yeah, well done, Games Portal. I'm going to have to make my way over there. It seems like a really diverse meta, which is great to see. Now moving over to Good Games Morley in Perth. I love good games, Molly. I always see these guys on TikTok. 3 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw. Abzan mid-range, yet another fair player. So shout out to the Abzan mid-range player. And somebody not quite on the fair plan is Prison Bots. We also have 3 wins, 1 loss. We have Lurus Jund Shadow, which sounds amazing. Those are 3 really good words to put together. Grixis, Jund, and of course the classic, the old faithful Bug Reanimator.
They're very black-based. Imagine Prison Bots might be a bit more on the diamond pips, but very sweet to see that there's this good community brewing out in Perth. And be curious to see how much overlap there is between your list and this Abzan mid-range list, Nick.
Yeah, I think the mid-range list does a bit more of the Dark Depths stuff. I think I saw it linked in the Discord. I might even put it, overlay it onto this video as you're watching it now, just a quick scroll through of it. But we have looked at it. I think we looked at it in the first roundup, and it did a little bit of Dark Depths stuff. So yeah, very cool list, and it's good to see somebody else fighting the good fight and playing a nice, fair, non-blue deck. You know, it's good to see. Let's jump over to Sydney, where non-blue decks aren't getting as much love. Chromatic Games, we had 18 players in Sydney, and the 4-0 was Grixis. In the 3 wins and 1 loss, we had Stormbond. Sure what Stormbond is, but I imagine it looks very cool. It's a great name. Jund Lands, more lands, which is great to see. Atraxa Walks, Eldrazi, and Orzhov Taxes.
Very cool lineup here. Shout out to the Grixis pilots for putting in the good work. And yeah, Stormbond's certainly one I haven't come across either before, but I'm sure it is a fully functioning deck if it can get 3 wins and just 1 loss.
Yeah, agreed. Selesnya Angels as well. Whoever that is, keep fighting the good fight. Might be 0 wins, 4 losses, but it just sounds like a great deck. I'd love to see what that Angels deck can do. Now, we actually do have an interview with the pilot for the Orzhov Taxes. I believe it was Charlie. So we're going to jump over now to a quick interview with them, and we'll discuss their deck, and then, yeah, we'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Nathan, and I'm here with Charlie, who recently put up a great result at a weekly event at Chromatic Games in Sydney. And here on the channel, we love to highlight interesting decks, and this one is definitely interesting. Hi, Charlie. How you going?
Hey, not so bad.
Yeah, glad to hear that. And here we've got Orzhov Death and Taxes by the looks of it. What made you want to play this kind of deck?
It's sort of I got introduced to this deck actually by my friend Lachlan, who is my brewing friend. He's also someone you had on the channel before, showing off their Dice Factory list. They sort of put this together about a year ago almost, and I sort of took one look at it and immediately knew I wanted to pilot it. So when they gave it to me, it was very, very much Death and Taxes, and over time, a lot of the Taxes cards have taken out for just more efficient, powerful creatures that are less tax effects and more just winning the game.
Yeah, there's some initiative cards in here. Obviously the Modern Horizons 3, Guide of Souls,
Yes.
and you got Cecil from Final Fantasy. But what was really interesting to me is the Edge of Eternities cards. You got quite a few of them in here.
Yeah, Age of Eternities was a great set for this deck. I found probably 5 or 6 different cards that I wanted to try. Having now tested them, I am definitely not going to be playing all of them, but the ones that are staying for sure is Sir Vondum and Starfield Shepherd. Both have been absolute powerhouses when I've been playing them. Sir Vondum vastly overperformed from what I was expecting, especially with its combos with stuff like Voice of Victory. It's become a great card in the deck.
Yeah, the tokens that come into play and then die, and then that card looks like it would be pretty fast clock and pretty hard to sort of profitably interact with once it gets going, because use a removal spell on it. When it dies, it destroys up to another 1 target non-land permanent, and seems these sort of talked about this recently on another episode, was that these sort of like Boros decks, Orzhov decks, being able to have this incremental value allows you to participate in that mid-range game plan a lot better than previously. So it's really cool to see this kind of deck putting in some work.
Yeah, this deck definitely has a good sort of grindy mid-range game plan for when you can't just, run out your Guided Souls or Slot Pride starts. Wasteland Strip Mine helps a lot with that plan, and sort of Catch Most in the One Ring really helping bring in that card advantage for stuff like the Grixis matchup.
Yeah, so I think the sort of the mid-range game plan that these sort of other decks like to enact, it's cool that you can not only play at that level but also disrupt them with these cards like Clarion Conqueror and like Felia, Emperor of Bones, Skyclave Apparition. Like these sort of decks that rely on key pieces to sort of continue pushing damage, like their Baragos and whatnot. You're able to, one, play them yourself, but two, sort of get them out of the way enough to put the pressure on and kill them. Do you find that this deck has like an interesting point spread? Do you think there are cards that you'd like to play that you haven't been able to?
Yeah, I mean, my my point spread is kind of my favorite point spread of this format, which is 8 1-point cards. I kind of think if people want to play or adapt this deck, there's sort of 4 points that I would never cut, which is Krakus, Wasteland, Strip Mine, Deathrite Shaman. I think those cards are sort of glue for the deck. After that, I think you can definitely play around with what you may or may not want. I could see a good 7-point version playing potentially a Mox. That's not something I have access to myself. Otherwise, yeah, I'm pretty happy with the point spread. Obviously, had to recently cut Mental Misstep, which I don't think I'm missing too much because I have enough other disruption within the deck. But we'll see as the as I continue to play games with it.
It's interesting that you mentioned the uncuttable cards basically being 3 lands. How do you feel about their role in the deck? What makes them uncuttable?
I think part of what makes this deck so good is the mana disruption. Obviously, there are a lot of very good big mana decks at the moment, but also there are a lot of good 3 and 4 color decks. And if you can disrupt their mana enough to potentially cut them off a color or significantly reduce how much access they have of a color, it can really help like slow them down enough for you to overwhelm with your board state. It's also why I personally am a big believer in Field of Ruin and Ghost Quarter, and to a same extent Rashad Port, which I've seen people cut from lists that have adapted from this. I think that's honestly very wrong in the format. Every time I play against a 3-color deck that includes red, it's pretty easy to make sure they never have access to red mana because who's playing a basic mountain?
It's true. If you're playing a Blood Moon sort of deck, you're like, oh, I don't need to play any basic mountains because my deck is going to produce them with Blood Moon. But if you can take them off those key lands, yeah, definitely makes sense. I think you're definitely right that there is a lot of greedy mana bases out there. Do you feel like this deck has a good position in the metagame to sort of deal with these sort of 4-color value piles / combo decks? And
yeah, yes, I'm pretty happy with its position at the moment. I don't have the most practice against Storm, the Lotus Storm decks, so I can't speak too much to that matchup. But stuff like Breach Bond is great because they're not playing any basics usually, so it's really easy to disrupt their mana. And I found over time the Grixis and the other sort of mid-range decks are good as you start to learn the matchup more. I think they're not necessarily the best from the outset, but the more you understand what cards are key in those matchups, the better I think they become for you.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very true of this format. Is the more knowledge you have about what your opponent is doing, the easier it is to sort of cripple them in a key way with like a snipe of an important land or a timely Leonin Arbiter or some such effect. Leonin Arbiter is such a great card. I'm always excited when I see that. It's just incredibly disruptive.
I can't honestly count the number of times I've almost cut Leonin Arbiter, but it honestly keeps overperforming for me each time I cast it. So it's never actually going to leave the deck, I think, until there's better effect of that printed.
Yeah, I think these kind of effects that cause players to have to think differently about how they're playing the game are so interesting because if you've played 100 games against Grixis or whatever, you know sort of what you're doing. You're playing your cards, you're playing around certain removal pieces, you're just trying to whittle down their value. But these sort of decks that include cards like just stacks pieces that affect the board, say like a Trinisphere or a Leonin Arbiter, these kind of effects, make your opponent really have to figure out how they're going to sequence their turns. I think those are the like really interesting decks that if you have a good pilot with them, they can be, I think, like meta breaking decks. So it's cool to see more of these sort of things getting around. And I like the fact that this is not a like a red blue or a blue black sort of tempo land denial deck. This is actually like black white. So that's another cool thing. All right. Did you, by any chance, have an interaction in here that you think's sweet that you want to sort of?
Yeah. I think one of my favorite cards in the deck is Samwise the Stout-Hearted. Obviously, bringing back your Wasteland Strip Mines is great, but its interaction with Fracas is my favorite because its ETB makes a creature your Ring Bearer, which also makes it legendary. So if, say, your Guide of Souls or Ocelot Pride is being targeted with a removal spell, you can flash in Sam, make it legendary, and then Fracas it back to your hand. Now that you've turned it into a legend. And so there's some interesting things you can do with that more than just bringing back your fetch land or strip mine.
Yeah, so like I imagine it's probably more like if you had a land that you also cracked, so you could get like a 2-for-1 value there, because I think you would just like pick up the thing that they killed.
Yeah, like there's thing, there are.
Well, I mean, like those are the kind of things that you need to do to go over the top of mid-range decks, though, right? Like you need to be able to get those sort of niche edge case, like extra bits of value. I think the Wasteland, the Strip Mine, casting Samwise, getting it back, and then taking off 2 lands is such a great idea. But no, definitely like if you can protect something and then also get value at the same time, just like, sort of like whittle down your opponent. Those are the kind of things that this deck looks like it'd be very good at.
I think it's a deck that really rewards percentage points play of really looking for every little bonus you can get from every line, as opposed to some which kind of just play however.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I meant by like if you have these kind of decks and a good pilot who's confident in the lines and has a bunch of reps in it, that these kind of decks can be like meta breaking. So it's cool to see.
All right, in Sydney we had Cardboard Cafe, 13 players. There's a really good deck list I can already see, but we'll make our way down there. 4-0 Grixis yet again. Old Faithful Grixis, a great mid-range deck. 3-1 we had Mardudes and Colorless Eldrazi, which is interesting. I don't think we generally see at least one color, so Colorless seems good. And then in the 2 wins, 1 loss and 1 draw, great deck list. Animal Shithouse. I think that's probably Zoo. I don't know what Animal Shithouse is, but whoever you are, great deck. And then Azorius Control, so another great fair control deck. What do you reckon, Stoney?
Very cool lineup here. I'm seeing Boris Flurry and Grixis Sinker on the right-hand side there as well.
Yeah, very nice.
But as you said, a bit of different takes going on here. I'd be curious to know what the contents of the Animal Shithouse is. Wonder if there is a relationship to me either. And Azorius Control, cool to see that showing up and not going down the path of temptation in red.
Yeah, agreed. Yes, guys, it's a siren's call to play red. All right, now moving over to Wollongong. Good games in Wollongong. Once again, this list has been coming up every week. 4 Blaster Moon. This is a deck playing all 4 blasts in the classic moon shell. So playing the blue-red moons and then playing a blast of every color. So really interesting and good way to approach the meta is saying, well, I know my blast is going to be turned on, so I'm going to play them. And I believe the deck also plays a high amount of pitch cards like Force of Will and Fury to allow those blasts to still be relevant when they're not quite relevant, which is great. At 3-1, we had the Simic Endstone deck, which we looked at last week, an 8-point Jund, and Storm.
Yeah, I'm curious when Fall Blast Moon will step it up to 6 blasts to get the Flash Floods in. They're very cool set of decks here.
Yeah.
Bit of Storm going on, fair bit of combo in the room, but good amount of fair decks to give that bit of variety to Unite.
Yep. I think the Fall Blaster Moon player should bring a Flash Flood main board next week, get another 4-0, and then launch it over to us, and we can have a good chat about it, because I'd love to see at least the 6 Blaster Moon would be a great deck to go through, so maybe they should at least try it. Anyway, great job on the result again for Blaster Moon player. And sticking around Woollongong for just a little bit longer, we have the Steel City Games 1K event. Now, the results for this event did come in after we'd finished recording, so this is just me the next morning kind of jumping in and recording this. At 3 wins and 0 losses and 2 draws, we had Jund, Storm, Abzan Midrange, Shops, and Simic Endstone. So a bunch of decks we've looked at in previous roundups, all coming down to put down a great result. And then in the 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw, we had quite a fair 8-point Jund list, Attracts of Walks, and Time Vault. 8-point Jund was able to take out the overall event, having beaten Jund in the finals. So our dual lands maybe aren't as good as we thought. And they were also able to beat Storm in the semis, which is very interesting and very well played. So congratulations to our 8-point Jund pilot. Other winning lists for this event were Storm, 5 color tokens, 4 Blaster Moon, Breach Bond, Red Artifacts, and 8-point Bant Nadu. Okay, so moving back into Adelaide, we had a 22-player event at Good Games Modbury. Now, the results for this came in after Stoney and I recorded it, much like the previous slide, so just chucking it in this roundup instead. We had 22 players at Good Games Modbury. It's Modbury, right? If I'm getting that wrong, someone tell me. Our top 8 consisted of Red White Moons, Mardu Midrange, Jeskai Spoons. They're never running out of ideas with these deck names. So I think Jeskai Spoons is a Jeskai Moons deck list, so your Harbinger of the CFX with a Stoneforge package. I think the Spoon, I mean, whoever the person who made the deck is, can you just at me and tell me what it is? Because I don't know, but I think it's maybe the equipment package that's part of the deck, and that's the Spoon. It's like, I don't know, spoons are like a weapon in the right hand. I don't know. You tell me. Esper Midrange, Domain Zoo. Sure, Vance will be happy about that. Artifact Combo, Mardu Initiative, and taking out the overall event is Storm, the big bad. Everybody take a sip. I'm just kidding. Congratulations to the Storm pilot. A great use of a Black Lotus. And just a really good deck right now. Tezzeret, Mental Misstep, Deep Point, all of these things have kind of coalesced into a very strong, a very consistent deck. And yeah, congratulations for taking down the 22-player event. Moving on to Magic the Gathering Online. Volty Five Nights 48. No surprises here. Richard on Storm, I believe, with a 4-0, so congratulations. Winning yet another Volty's Five Night. On the 3-1 slot, we had Jund, Time Vault, Bots, and Jund. 16 players as well. Great result there.
Yeah, it looks to be a bit of a Jund night. Cool to see that John's still showing up. They had a bit of slower month over at the Pug Monthly this month. And Time Vault recently picked up Tezzeret as well, which must be a great tool for them, as it certainly has proved for Storm this week.
I agree. I think Tezzeret being able to kind of cast a Mana Vault and then cast a Tezzeret and then untap your Mana Vault, it's a very cool interaction, and it just getting it out really early and then going and fetching your Black Lotus or your Mana Vault cards, it has provided the deck with a very good boon and just a really strong main deck card that they've been kind of needing to push them in front of these. So good to see Storm still winning every event so far. Now, for more info on our weekly and fortnightly events, you can go and check out our Where Can I Play Point Highlander video. There'll be a link to it in the description as well. You can also catch we'll try and get out at least 2 gameplay videos per week from our Plenty of Games and Maze of Fitzroy weeklies. So definitely jump onto the channel and have a look. And if you haven't already, could you just jump in and subscribe and like? It really does help us, especially subscribing. I think we're approaching 100, which is a great result, and we've really appreciated the support we've gotten. Speaking of support, there's a lot more support as well that we get. We obviously need to get these deck lists from multiple people around Australia. This is not information that we can just get from the Discord. So shout out to Raj, Zach, Billy, Jack, JD, Michael, Lockie, Stephen, and Ariel. We really appreciate you launching over the deck lists, and big shout out to these people as well. So thanks a lot. Stoney, what do you reckon about this week?
week, I'd say. Had some great games. Good to get a bit of travel out to different stores in. Very much looking forward to the weeks to come and many, many more games to be had.
Yeah, I agree. Well, this has been Nick and Stoney for your weekly roundup. I appreciate you sticking around this long to listen to your high quality weekly roundup content, and we'll see you shortly for some more videos.